Aloha and welcome. I'm Sean Lether, your host. We're so excited to be broadcasting live on the Conscious Awakening Network. If you are watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. Tonight's guest, Sheila Seppi, is an author, speaker, healer, teacher, life coach, regression therapist, and shamanic practitioner who blends various special modalities to help people explore the realms of self-discovery and transformation. She is the founder of the Conscious Awakening Network, the Galactic Alliance, Spirit Way Ministries, and podcast host for Conscious Awakening series with Sheila Seppi and Cosmic Conversations. On September 23rd, 1999, Sheila became a soul exchange walk-in. She entered the body of a 38-year-old mother with 3 children and was instantaneously healed from documented illnesses. You can find out more about Sheila at her website, which is www.sheilaseppi.com. Welcome, Sheila.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great and so excited for you to be here. Why don't you start and tell us about your amazing experience?
Okay, well, in 1999, I was a very sick person. I'd been diagnosed with bone cancer, brain tumors, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I walked with a cane. I had erythema nodosum, sarcoidosis, you name it, I had it. Had the beginning stages of multiple sclerosis, RA, and in short, my health was in the toilet. And I was in pain a lot of the times, very irritable, had 3 children, a husband, a very demanding job, and I just don't know how in the world I was doing it as I look back now. But what happened to me is I went to bed a very sick person, and what felt like about 7 o'clock the next morning, it seemed like somebody reached down, grabbed me by the hair of the head, pulled me bolt right up in bed, and it was like lightning ran through my body, and then I was in white space. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, did you die? And it's like, I don't have a clue because I was in white space. I don't know where this space was, but I do know I was out of pain. I was surrounded by unconditional love. I was very, very comfortable. And if I had had my say, I probably would have stayed there because it was the most amazing place ever. But the next thing I knew, my peripheral vision was coming in and then my frontal vision. And as I sat up in bed and was looking around, everything was the same, but everything was different. And I really didn't even know how, Sean. It was just, everything was just different. But when I got out of bed and I put my feet on the floor and I felt carpet, it was like I'd felt carpet for the first time, which was like, ooh, this feels really good, and I'm walking through the bedroom and I caught my reflection in the mirror. And it was like I was looking out of somebody else's eyes and I was just mesmerized. So I stopped and I was looking at my teeth and my hair and, my eyes and everything. And I'm thinking, gosh, this is really weird because the next thing that happened, I started having these past life memories. Now, for a lot of us, past life memories is no big deal, but I didn't even believe in them. The next thing that happened is I started having all these memories about how to heal people. And these modalities was starting to flood through my mind. And I had never studied alternative healing. I was a kid of Western medicine because as far as I was concerned, that was what was keeping me alive. And then I also had a lot of universal truths that was flooding through my body that I did not have a reference point to be able to even understand. And so the next things that started happening is the clairvoyance started coming in. And I started seeing people walking around and talking to me. And honestly, I thought I had lost my mind because I thought, okay, I've just had a psychotic break between the dysfunctional marriage, the kids, the job, the illness. I've lost it. I've just lost it. And I was convinced of that. And of course, everybody around me was also supporting that philosophy that I had lost it. I lost all of my friends, and which was okay because all of a sudden I didn't resonate with them anymore and I didn't understand that. But within 3 months, I had left the marriage, and within another 3 months, had found my first spiritual teacher, actually accepted a job in another state and moved. And so for me, that was kind of Spirit's way of opening a door to help get me out. Now, I know a lot of times when walk-ins come in, they don't have any support. And at that time, I didn't have support, but I did have support because Spirit set this new job up for me. Spirit provided this house for me. All of a sudden, I had this whole clan of women who were my circle sisters and helped me to raise my kids. And so my kids were at the time 3, 6, and 12. And so all of a sudden, they had this mom that could play with them, could get up and run around, and we could do things together. Whereas before, I was laying on the couch just trying to play with them. So for the first 6 months, I was kind of like treading water. I didn't want the new employers to think I was going wacko. And so as I was visiting the town that I was getting ready to move in, of course, this is in 2000. We didn't even have, well, we had internet, but it wasn't as, available as it is today. So I'm looking through the phone book, and in the back, there was an ad, excuse me, for a spiritual counselor. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I need, because she also was a psychologist. So it was like spiritual counseling that I felt comfortable with because my background was in psychology. So that really resonated. Spiritual, I was religious. At the time, I didn't even know the difference between spiritual and religious. And so I went to see her and set up that meeting. And as I was talking with her and sharing the story, she's making her notes and we're doing whatever we're doing. By the second meeting, well, even I think in that first meeting, she brought up and she goes, we can have more meetings, but she said, I can honestly tell you, I don't think you're having a psychotic break. And I really don't think that there's anything mentally wrong with you. The people that you're seeing, have you ever heard of spirit guides? They could be spirit guides. Well, that started my blood boiling just a little bit. And then I'm like, she's just discounting me. I thought she was, patting me on the head and sending me out the door. I went for drugs. That's what I wanted. I wanted to take my little blue pill, pop it, and my life would go back to normal. But no, she's talking to me about spirit guides and, angels and all this kind of stuff. And she had talked about walk-ins. And she gave me a book. And I'll be honest with you, when I left, I was literally furious. It's like, this lady's crazy. I just paid all this money. I get down to the car and it's like, but I think she's telling me the truth. So I called back and I'm like, sorry for my behavior. I would love to see you again. So I actually started seeing her twice a week for a long time. And she ended up becoming my first spiritual teacher because she also was of Hopi lineage. And it was there that I learned that, yes, indeed, those individuals walking around and talking to me were my spirit guides, and that I was clairvoyant and I was claircognizant. I had all the clairs, but when they come online so quickly, it's just too much for the senses. Now it's just, it's commonplace. It's not that big a deal. But when you have that light switch turned on, so through working with her and other people too, figuring out that I was a walk-in was one thing. And then I was told I was a soul exchange walk-in, that my soul literally had left the body and a new soul came in, kind of like reincarnation. And I'm like, what? First off, it's hard enough for me to believe in walk-ins, and then to tell me my soul left and a new soul came in. But that really started making sense to me, because one of the things when I came in, my personality totally changed. I didn't eat the same. I didn't dress the same. I didn't listen to the same music. I articulated my sentences much better and about subjects that I really didn't have any knowledge of, but all of a sudden I knew what I was talking about. And that's where everybody started going, okay, here we go. You are no longer our friend. But I stopped being invited. People stopped calling me, the whole 9 yards. And so I began to learn from my spirit guides, though, that yes, indeed, I was a walk-in, and I began to develop a relationship with them because I was also learning about shamanism. And truly, it was shamanism that helped to anchor me. And I feel really, guided, guarded, and blessed this whole time. Now, the other thing that I discovered is that I am part of a collective. And so what that means is there was not just a single soul that came in, but a soul that's connected to many, many pieces. Yes, it's all in here, but yes, it's all out here too. And so it's a very succinct type of experience. I mean, I can't tell the difference when one person's coming in or another person's leaving because I just have access to different information. So I'm constantly connected to them. One of the newest members, well, first I have several members that help me assist me with healing. And then I have a new one that has come in, and her whole main function is all about working with the DNA. And so she speaks light language and uses different frequencies, etc., as we're working, but they provide tons of knowledge. Now, when I'm writing or I am working on something, believe me, they're the ones that's doing the work. Let's look at the Conscious Awakening Network as an example. They just told me that I was going to do it. And I have learned the hard way that when they say you're going to do something, you're going to do it the easy way or the hard way, but you're definitely going to do it. And so I'm like, well, great, I'm happy to do this, but you're going to have to open the doors and show me how. And everything has just been bam, 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 bam. Within 2 days of saying that, I had the right people show up in my life. And then when I discovered that, this is a little bit more than I thought. It's a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be. Then they put the technical team right in my lap. And my tech guy actually came to me because he had written the letter to the wrong person and accidentally sent it to me. It was supposed to go to another Sheila. And so I got a hold of him. I'm like, well, this is not the Sheila that you think it is. However, and then we started this conversation, and he's still with me today. And so for me, being a walk-in has been truly a blessing in my life because all of a sudden I had my health back, and I've never really been sick again. I've had some really weird, funky things to happen, but as far as any of those illnesses, they have never ever come back. And so I also think that working, with my team, because they're very high level, has helped me too, because when they're coming in, they're always infusing the holographic grid of the body with their energy. And so if there's any lower vibrational frequencies, viruses, colds, that kind of thing, it gets knocked out pretty quick. So that's my story.
So I have so many questions. And by the way, everybody who has questions, put your questions in the chat and we'll ask them as we go on. But how was your family? Like, what did they think when you didn't have these memories anymore? Did you know who they were?
Well, I knew my mom, my dad, and my kids, thank goodness. And I knew who the husband was, and I got rid of him. I divorced him in about 3 months. I was like, so it's like, who is this person? But my mom probably, I guess 6 months, 8 months in, sat me down on the couch and she goes, I need to have a serious conversation with you. And I thought, oh my God, she's going to tell me she's got a disease. And she goes, I really think you need to make a doctor's appointment. I said, you think I need to make a doctor's appointment? She's like, yes, I think you have the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. Because I didn't remember anybody. We had just come back from a funeral, and apparently it was a cousin that I had no really memory of. All these people came up, oh my God, we haven't seen you in so long. And they're talking to me. I had no clue who they were, but I was really good at, like, oh, how are you doing? It's been great. How's your life? What's your favorite thing? So I was really good at keeping a conversation going. So I would try to deflect things from me because I really didn't know who these people were. And, that's one of the reasons why having my spiritual teacher and my group was really a good support for me, because they were constantly saying, no, you're not crazy. No, this is normal. Yes, this is a normal feeling. And they really helped me to navigate a lot of this. Plus, it doesn't hurt when you got your spirit guide in your ear, like, okay, let's go over here. Let's go do this. And they would help me to navigate. Now, I used to joke and say, well, why didn't you guys tell me who that was? You're talking all the time. So why didn't you just tell me? But that's not the way that it worked. And so I have asked for a lot of my memories back. And the reality is, I didn't even tell my dad I was a walk-in until the day before my book was going to be published and go public. And then, and when I talked to him, I said, you remember when I was very sick? And he goes, yes. And I said, and you remember all of a sudden I was better? He goes, I know, that was a miracle. And I said, and then you remember how all of a sudden that I had all this clairvoyance, and I could see, because I saw his sister and when she passed and gave messages to the family and stuff. And that's something that I had really never done before. And I said, so you remember all of that? And he's like, yes. And I said, well, the reason is because when I was sick, that soul left and another soul came in. So I'm a walk-in. And he sat there for a minute and he thought, and he goes, because remember, I came from a religious background. He goes, that's when Jesus healed your body and you were given the gifts of the Spirit. And I'm like, exactly. And so my family accepted me 100% based on what their belief system was. And so it was never like, oh my God, here she comes again, hide the Christmas presents or anything like that. They opened, they really opened their hearts to the concept. And, it's not like we sit down and have long discussions about it, but at least I was not ostracized.
So how did you merge? Because the original Sheila left.
Right.
And what do you know what your name was before?
Yeah. My name was Na-wai-la.
Yeah. So, okay. So how did you merge with Sheila? Because, because now you talk about her as if you're merged in a way, even though she's gone.
Right.
How did you do that?
Well, remember, when you become a walk-in, and even though the soul left, you're coming into this physical body that they have already imprinted on. This is just an avatar. So I got a used car with all the baggage, all the karma, everything that was with it, all the family problems, all the finance, everything. You take that on and you get it cleared up before you can start your mission. But for me, because I still didn't know what was going on, remember, I'm from a collective. That soul, when they left, was an Arcturian soul. And so there was an energetic framework laid within the holographic field that makes up all of our energetic bodies and the aura itself. And when I came in, remember, I'm from a collective. So it was kind of like drip and drip, drip a little bit of that Arcturian soul energy into me, because you have to have enough energy to animate the body. And so the Arcturian aspects came in first, because that way I didn't fry the biology or the neurology because of that other framework. And then over time, as I began to heal and to clear things up, more and more of those aspects of the collective came in.
Hang on. Do you believe in soul contracts? Did you have a soul contract with her? Did you have an agreement?
I checked on that, because at first I was asking, well, can anybody become a walk-in? And they're like, no, if that was the case, everybody in this planet at some time or the other would be a walk-in. Like, I can't deal this anymore. But that's not what it was. For me, I came in, I have a very specific mission, which is what I'm on track doing my mission work every single day. But when this particular soul cried out to be released, there was not really like soul contracts, when they typically are forged, they're forged thousands of years before, well, what we would consider thousands of years, because all the players have to be in place. Everybody has to be born. Everybody has to get to a certain age for a particular walk-in to come in when you have a soul contract. But this one did not have a soul contract. And when this soul cried out to be released, I was already here in the earth sphere, because we had been called by Gaia to assist, and we were helping in the crystalline grid, sending in light codes into the collective consciousness, trying to help people to wake up, trying to send in healing codes, sending in codes of love and compassion. So when this soul cried out to be released, then there was a decision made immediately by the collective that I would be the aspect to come in. Now, I'm sure some kind of agreement had to be struck somewhere or the other. I have no knowledge of that. But when I asked them, was this a pre-birth plan? Was this a pre-agreement? They said no. And then I started really freaking out. And I'm like, oh God, am I a body snatcher? Did I take advantage of a weak body? And they're like, no, she was ready to go. That was it. Her time was up. But had I not come in and the soul expired, or the body expired, the father would have raised these children. And I can tell you that would have been devastating for all three of them.
So where did she go? And have you communicated with her? Have you heard from her
You
ever
know,
again?
I am not, no, you know, some people say their soul hangs around and all this stuff. She was gone. I have never once had contact with her ever, ever. You know, I think that at one point I felt like a lot of sadness and regret. And I think that maybe some of that was hers, you know, when I was experiencing a lot of her emotions. But I've never, you know, and I talk with my collective all the time. I talk with other spirits and guides, you know, all the time, but she has never once shown up. So as far as I know, she was on to her next mission, doing her job.
So how did your kids take this? What did
They
they think
loved
of
it.
first?
Oh, they loved it,
Did they?
because this other mother, she's, you know, always tired, always sick. I don't have time. Go away. Leave me alone. I'm going to bed. But then all of a sudden, you know, my youngest, Dylan, who I have a healing business with, he'll tell people, he's like, so she was so boring. We couldn't ever play. We couldn't do anything. And the next thing I know, we're out, we're at the park, we're going to museums, we're going to swim, we're doing this. So the kids loved it. And they were young enough that it really didn't make a difference. It's not like the physical aspects had changed, you know, even though I did come in, I've got green eyes, and whereas before they were blue, but now I have green eyes, you know, and my hair is a little bit different, but you know, kids don't notice that stuff. So they loved it.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, because
Okay.
not everybody understands what a walk-in is.
Okay.
So if you could explain what a walk-in is and why it might occur.
Well, there's a lot of different types of walk-ins, okay? And so for me, my soul, just like with a near-death experience, how the soul leaves the body and it has an experience and then it brings that information back with it when it reanimates, instead of the original soul reanimating, another soul came in. And that soul had a totally different mission. I truly believe that the soul had its own mission, but for whatever reason, it got caught up in the 3D life, was sick and everything, and could not continue the mission. But a walk-in is not just a soul exchange. There's also what's called a soul infusion. And there's a lot of different types of soul infusion. So the first kind is when you have more of the higher aspects, more of your higher self or more of your oversoul to come in and to anchor into the body, but there's a little bit of that original soul energy that remains. And then the other type of infusion is what a lot is happening on the planet now because of all the hard work and the meditations and all the one-on-one spiritual work that people are doing on themselves, they raise their vibrational frequency high enough that more of that essence comes in freely without having to be a walk-in. But then you have like overlay souls that, like, if this is the soul, another soul will come in and actually lay over top of it and help infuse it, give it life force. And so there's many, many different types of walk-ins that happen. Mine was just kind of a dramatic event, and it was a dramatic story, and it was a dramatic life-changing event for me, because I've never been the same. You know, people, they can ask me all day long, my story, my memories never change on that. I gain more and more information as I am able to vibrationally or even mentally handle that information. But the story itself is the same since day one. And the feelings, every time I talk about it, I can feel that, you know, resonance inside of me.
And so why do walk-ins occur? And also, you can't ask for a walk-in, like, I want to check out of
Right.
here, someone else take over. Can
Right.
you?
No, there is, of course, if you believe in the pre-birth plans, a lot of times when people come in, they only need like to experience the first few years of life, or they might need to experience what it's like to be a teenager, or they need to experience what it's like to be a young adult, or to give birth, or to experience death, or to do whatever it is, and then they're complete. And when they're complete, it's time for them to leave. But you got a perfectly good body here. You know, coming to this planet, being in human form, especially at this particular time on the planet, is really, you know, it's a very, it's a gift. It's truly a gift, because forever is a long time. And when you are not in a physical form and you're on that other side, if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Sean, I heard of this place that you can go and you can laugh and you can actually taste food, not just know what it's like, and you can experience love and you can experience hate and you can, you know, experience all of this stuff," you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in." Even though when we get here, it's like, what was I thinking? That heartache is not as cool as I thought it was going to be, but it is something that you can experience, because, you know, when you're on the other side, you know what it's like to be everything. You know what it's like to be the water. You know what it's like to be the wave on top of the water. You know what it's like to be the fish and how it feels to move in the water. You know everything. But when you're here, you can jump in that water. You can feel it on your skin. I'm telling you, the first couple of years I was here, I was just like, "Oh, I got to touch and I got to taste and I got to feel everything." I was so excited, just about everything. Grass. It's not like I was watching grass grow, but I would just sit and look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful that color is. I mean, I was amazed by everything. It's like being an infant, you know, in having an adult mind in an infant's body, that all of a sudden you're experiencing everything for the first time. And so walk-ins come in for a lot of different reasons. So some of it can be they have a soul mission that they need to accomplish. Sometimes it's because this soul mission needs to occur at a certain point, or they need to anchor in certain energies, or they have a certain task that needs to, you know, occur. It's hard, you know, when you look at, and there's thousands of walk-ins on this planet. Sean, I think, you know, from the way we've talked, you're probably a walk-in also. And so, you know, when the soul is forever, why would you not want to come in and have all the experiences that you can have? You know? And so, as I was talking about earlier, and I kind of got off track, when I entered into the body and I took on this form, I had to do all this cellular clearing, because then I was dealing with the genetics from that family. I was dealing with the soul imprints of the experiences that that soul had had previously to me. And so all of that had to be cleared out. And honestly, you know, the healing, that was kind of the easiest thing. And I tell people, I said, if I had been a doctor, and this also is a Godism, it has to be, because if I had been a doctor and I had a client as sick as I was, and they came back and they were perfectly healed, instead of saying, wow, this is great, and sending me out the door, I'd have been like, come back next week and let's run some tests. You know, I want blood samples. I want this. I want that. How did this happen? You know, and all of a sudden, why are your eyes a different color? And what's up with your hair? You know, of course, everybody changes their hair, so nobody thinks about that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, you know, when you start this cellular clearing, if you are sick, then in my case, I became healthy. Now, a lot of times, let's use the example of maybe star seeds when they wake up, not necessarily a walk-in, but let's say a star seed wakes up. That's an instant vibrational shift in the body. And I hate to tell it to people, but you know, probably very few people are from Earth. Very few people are Earth seeds. Most people are from other planets, other dimensions. It may be the first time they may have just individuated from source, and this is their first experience, or they're a star seed, because there's a lot of planets out there.
So what did the doctor say when you killed yourself?
They just basically said, "Oh, well, I guess that medical treatment worked." Woo! You know,
They
I
took
mean,
the credit.
of course, they took the credit. You know, they're not going to say spontaneous miracle in their notes. It's like, oh, this medication really worked. You know, but then I never went back. You know, I didn't go to any follow. I never go to the doctor. I think since I've been a walk-in in 99, maybe twice, maybe 3 times to a doctor. You know, I don't need to go. And the one time I did have to go, all of a sudden I was just healthy as could be. And then bam, I had this liver failure that happened, which honestly, my enzymes were like, I think the number was like 2,360 something. It was supposed to be like 40. I mean, huh. So anyway, I was out of work for only a month. And then I was back at work because the body rapidly healed. But I honestly believe that was another period of time that they were really working with me and bringing in yet another, you know, more and more soul essence.
So tell us a little bit about your memories from the other side before you came here.
Okay. So let's see. The most immediate memories were, like I said, I was part of a collective, and being part of a collective, it's pure consciousness. Okay. But we were like way out, almost to the very edges of the Andromedan system. And we were actually kind of observing something that was going on. At first, I couldn't tell, was we a scout? Was I in a ship? But it was just pure consciousness and an observation. And there was this thing coming in to the outer realms. And there was a ship that was over to the right. And all of a sudden, there was like this ring of light that went doo, 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 all the way around. And this pulsation stuff started coming out, and it encapsulated this thing, and it pulsed it until it disappeared. And as we were watching it, that's when we felt that tug from Gaia. And it was like a cry. And she was wanting people to come to assist. And I say people, so whether you're in a spirit form or a consciousness form or whatever it is, you know, I just refer to it as people, even galactics are people. And so we were called to come to Earth. And when we came, we, I guess you would say, we entered into the field of the crystalline grid that surrounds the earth. But it wasn't just us, there were like thousands, but we all merged our consciousness. And by raising that vibratory frequency, that's how we were pulsing and sending those light codes in. I have vague memories of being on different planets, some of them kind of deserty, some of them, very lush. One, the sky was kind of greenish, the grass was sort of blue. It was almost like an opposite to this planet. And then I have some memories of being on the Andromedan. It's not really a planet, it's kind of like a biosphere. But inside of it, there's like mountains and rivers. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And if you didn't know, you would think that you were on a planet, but it's really a biosphere. And then there's like little dome houses and, different things like that. But the memories mostly that I have are like those, it's like, when you've got something on the tip of your tongue, it's like, I just can't bring that forward when I'm really, really thinking. It's like, okay, I really want to know about. And then a lot of times my collective's like, you don't need to know about that. You're here. You got a job. Focus on the task at hand. I'm like, oh man. Just like with the memories, they finally told me, they're like, look, these are not your memories to begin with. Okay. So why do you want them? And they'll only bog you down. And then they were right, later in life, as, I progressed and I was more anchored into my body, they gave me a few more memories that I was like, okay, yeah, we got to clear that from the cells. And so I was doing this cellular clearing for about 10 years. But now the information that they give to me is just more, I just call it like, universal basic stuff, which isn't really universal basic stuff to a lot of people. And to a lot of people it is. But to most people, like the dimensions and the densities and the, holographic universes and all these types of things, that's the kind of information that they're giving me and working with me. In about a year and a half ago, was in about 2 years. In 2 years' time, they've given me 2 different healing modalities, and it's all about different aspects, like the ley lines of the body, which I'd never heard. And when my team said, okay, now we're going to teach you about the ley lines, well, me being me, it's like, oh, well, we call those meridians. They're like, no, we're going to teach you about the ley lines. It's like, yeah, we call those meridians. We have 11 major. And they're like, no, these go horizontally, left and right, front and back, eternity. And I'm like, what? So they started teaching me about that. And then they began to teach about how, the holographic grid is set up. And then when I'm working on somebody, when I really tap into them, it's like I'm seeing graph paper, and that goes all the way in through all of the various bodies. And they've shown me there's 12 bodies, and between the astral body and the spiritual body, there's a field, and it's electromagnetic field, but it holds information on what they're calling the matrices. And that matrixy connects into the heart. And it's like the higher chakras, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. And then it connects out into, out into the cosmos and brings information in the body.
Fascinating. So as they're giving you some of these memories, and that we have multiple timelines, you got some memories that was basically multiple timelines, right? Where you remember we were talking about that the other day. And what is that like to process? You've got two memories, but they have different outcomes because they're on different timelines. How do you merge those together?
Well, if there's a lot of different timelines that's at play right now, even on the planet. But when you are not in physical form, they're not even really like timelines. They're just more different vibrational frequencies. And depending on what the resonance of the individual or the collective is at that, and collective being collective people at the time, that determines what you are in resonance with. And so you can have higher timelines, you can have lower timelines, but they're all just frequency bands. But these frequency bands, I guess you would say, have their own, I guess outcome is probably the better way to look at it. So, there's one timeline that the planet would be destroyed. There's another timeline that everybody has a spiritual awakening. There's another timeline when the timelines split and part of the people go one place, part of the people go another. There's other timelines where everyone, transitions at the same time. And so it all depends on the resonance that the individual and the population hold. So, like if you're above looking down on the planet and you're looking into the light quota that the souls hold, because each of us are already in our light bodies. We just have, I call it the meat suit. We just have these meat suits over top of it, and you can't see it, but we're already in our light bodies. But from above, you can see those light bodies if you're looking down on the planet with different kinds of eyes. So when you look down on the planet and you see all of this light, the brighter this light is, the denser or the less dense that the population is, the higher the frequency rises, the more light quota. And when it reaches a certain level, then the earth and the population on there will transition. And so, that is one particular timeline. And so it's really interesting that, how, because we are co-creators, we can lock ourselves into a particular timeline by believing this is what's going to happen. But when we open up and we allow, the flow of the universe to just move through us, to allow spirit to take control, and we just step in that flow, then we don't have to be locked into a timeline, and our vibration naturally just rises.
So that also helps you understand it's all just a big story too.
It
And you
is.
can choose whichever story you want to.
Absolutely. You have to
Participate.
remember, we are all part of source energy, having this grand experience together. So when source individuated and we came down into the oversouls and down, blah, 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 and we got to where we are now, we are still source. And we are having these experiences, but we're having them individually and we're having them collectively.
Yeah. So somebody wants to know, we already talked about the past soul, but why would you choose to come and take over in that soul versus starting and having your own experience?
Because I didn't need to have my own experience. I've already kind of been there, done that. And so we were here working on the grid. We are here trying to help raise the vibrational frequency of the planet. And so imagine I am boots on the ground. Like I saw Stone popped up. Stone is boots on the ground. She's a walk-in. And so we come with very specific frequencies that we're anchoring into the planet. And there's things that we can do here in physical form that takes a little bit longer to do in spirit form.
How many times do you think you've incarnated?
I don't know. And I did ask them that. All I know is I'm not quite sure. I've been here a lot. I mean, this could be my first. I don't know. They haven't said it's my first, but I'm not really, like anchored in. I think that this is a magnificent planet. I really do. But I also know, because of the energy that I hold with my collective, there's nothing that can beat that. There's nothing that can, beat that feeling of dropping into that multidimensionality of who you truly are. And so all of this is just a game of experience, and when I have clients that come in and they're like, oh my God, this is happening and that is happening and this is so bad and I can't sleep. And it's like, well, rise above it, let it go. Well, that's so easy for you to say. It's like, no, just do it, because guess what? Doesn't really matter. Think about this. In 100 years, is this going to matter to you? Well, what do you mean in 100 years? You know, somebody might come in thinking they're getting their hip worked on, but they did a whole lot more, because I'm always talking to people about their souls, because that's what I'm here to do, is to help people wake up and to remember who they are at the essence of their being. Because without the soul, there is no animation, you know, and that's why this physical form would have just died without that animation, because that soul was out of here one way or the other.
Um, what do you have any idea of what percentage of the people on Earth are walk-ins?
You know, I've never really asked about a percentage or anything. I do know that at one time, one year, they said there was going to be like 166,000 new walk-ins to come in that year alone. But then they kind of pulled the plug on that. Now, there's very active walk-in programs in the galaxy. And I know it sounds, you know, if you're not really into the galactic history and stuff, it might all sound kind of science fiction. But the reality is, you know, we're just one little speck in the universe. We're one little speck here in our solar system. There's life everywhere. I mean, this whole solar system is teeming with life, and a lot of people are just dying to get in here. You know, there's a line of souls that's ready to just walk in at any time. But throughout history, there have been walk-ins. And when I was writing my first book, they said, I met this guy who actually was Abraham Lincoln. He had walked into Abraham Lincoln's body, and, you know, he was talking about conversations that Abraham Lincoln had had, and that he had gotten calls and he couldn't talk about certain things. And, you know, so a lot of people believe that possibly Jesus was a walk-in when, during that baptism, that when he rose back up. A lot of people, I had one guest on Cosmic Conversations, and they said there were actually 3 different Jesuses on the planet, only one of them being, you know, Sananda coming in. But there, you know, there's a lot of different philosophies about walk-ins. But I really, and I know, I know it's, you know, I'm really trying to normalize these conversations because it's so normal to me. It just, I mean, it just makes perfect sense. Why would you give up a perfectly good form, you know, or something that you could, you know, recondition? You know, we buy used cars all the time. Why not get a used body, you know?
So we kind of already discussed it, but somebody else wants to know again. Yeah, the connection with your kids, is it as strong,
Oh,
you know, and organic as it was with the biological one?
I really believe that it's much better, because that person was very sick, couldn't do anything with the kids. And, you know, my son is 27, and he and I have a business together. We work together 5 days a week. We get along beautifully. My other daughter just lives 2 miles down the road. So yeah, I would think I do have another daughter that lives back in Virginia, where all of this happened, and she has moved back there with her, and she has her 3 kids, and she's still there with family. But she just doesn't like the snow out here in Colorado. I can't figure that, you know. You don't like 7 months of snow. What's wrong with you? But anyway, so yeah, I'm
I was
still
born in Salt Lake City, and
my
that's why I
kid.
live in Hawaii now.
Yeah.
So I understand not liking
Yeah.
the snow as much. So somebody made a comment, and this is kind of a good thing that you could answer. She
Okay.
says, I would think the body gets sick, not the soul. So she's, I guess, wondering, yeah, like, why would the soul want to leave if it's just the body that's sick?
Yeah. I think what happened, you have to remember, when we come in, we have that veil of forgetfulness. Most of us don't even realize we're a soul in a body. We think we're a body that may or may not have a soul. Okay. So there's the first point. The second thing is, when we come into when we come into a form and we're having all of our life experiences, until we wake up out of that 3D and understand that there's more to life than what we have been told, we really think that we're, in human form. We really think that that's what we are, is a human. I hope that answered.
Yeah, I think it did. So, you had talked about you're part of the Arcturian collective, and somebody wants to know if you could talk a little more about star seeds.
Sure. As a matter of fact, I have just written another book, and it was sent off again to the editor. And I've got this other book that I was working on too, and I did 40 interviews, and I am still working on that one. But this one came through very, very easily and very, very quickly, because it was a book that I wrote, and then I had Barbara Lamb put in some regressions that people had that kind of substantiate everything that I'm talking about. But when you talk about star seeds, my understanding of a star seed, it's when a soul directly is coming from another planet, comes into the body and wakes up to that remembrance of who they are as that person. And a lot of times, when people wake up, they may not know immediately, like, oh, I'm a star seed, but they may have this longing. It's like, man, I just don't feel like I belong here. I'm homesick, but I don't know where home is. These are some of the things that young star seeds will start to experience as they're waking up, because they don't have, like I didn't have a point of reference for any of this. But a star seed definitely is from another planet. And that reminded me too about, the Arcturian collective. I came in first as an Arcturian. I work with Arcturians in my work, but that's one aspect of my soul, because I have right now, predominantly, I'm operating as Andromedan. And so that is, that's all of these different lifetimes on a planet that I have already gone through and experienced. And let me bring this up too. When I'm talking about I've gone through this, I've experienced everything. If you think of this fist as being, your oversoul, these are all your multidimensional lifetimes, okay? This little thing right here would be called the Shantias Khan, because it contains everything you need for this life. It houses all the spiritual essence, it houses all the soul essence, houses the higher self aspect that you're going to need for this lifetime. And you always remain connected to it, so you can download and upload. And so this would be like an Arcturian, this could be an Earthling, this could be, whatever other kind of star system is out there. But like when I came from the collective, I was already back in this. I had already experienced these multidimensionals. They had come back into the oversoul. And so a star seed is actually one of these individual fingers, because they're having their own experience on another planet. That's a long answer to a quick question. Sorry about that.
It's a great explanation, and it's funny. So I've not told many people, but in 2011, between 2011 and 2012, which was between the first near-death experience and the second one, that's when I realized that I was a Pleiadian starseed. And on one hand, I felt crazy telling people. But on the other hand, it felt like, now I know who I am and where I come from, like somebody who, when they get a DNA test.
Yeah, exactly. And, so like Pleiadian star seeds, they can come from any of the planets within that Pleiadian star cluster, and they're usually associated with being creative, being very sensitive, being very spiritually wise. And they also have this deep connection with nature. and they have healing abilities. And so a lot of Pleiadians, they will say, man, I have just got to get outside. If I'm not outside, it just drives me crazy. And I know a lot of people here in Colorado that I have met are Pleiadian starseeds, and they love being outside constantly all the time.
Yeah, that's how it was for me. I was
Yeah.
outside in the jungle on the big island. It was
That's cool.
perfect. So a lot of people love to hear about the cellular clearing. Do you want to talk a little more about that?
Absolutely. So when I was doing, all right, so let's start like with a blank slate. So when the body is being formed inside of the mother, when it's still a fetus, the soul will begin to visit. It doesn't attach, but it begins to visit. And it begins to bring in the epigenetics of the soul so that it can start to imprint on the little fetus as it's growing. So the soul will come in and it'll come out many, many times. So when that baby is born, not only does it have the genetics from the DNA of the mom and the dad, it also has the epigenetics of the soul. And so that imprinting starts even before the baby is born. Honestly, I really believe that's why in religious texts, a lot of times they talk about, babies being born into sin. I don't think they're born into sin, but I do think they carry the genetics of the family. And that family has been imprinted on since the beginning of time and when the false matrixing was put into place and all of that imprinting, that feeling of they're born with the genetic feeling of separation. They're born with that genetic feeling of fear. Wow, they're a brand new baby. What do they got to fear? But they already have that imprinted. Okay. So that's the first thing that happens when you start to grow and you start to experience things. It's probably around the age of 3 or 4 that soul truly just locks in. Now you have that silver cord. When that baby is born, it already has a single soul that's, attached with it, but that soul still is out doing its job. It's out working. It's doing this. It's doing that. It comes back in. As the child grows, it finally locks into place. And that's when a lot of children around the age of, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of a sudden they start talking about their past lives. Why? Because the epigenetics of the soul have imprinted on the cellular structure of the body. Okay, that was already in there. But when that soul anchors into that body, just like when the soul anchored into this body, all of a sudden I remembered, like those past lives that I remembered, those were not my past lives. Those were the past lives that were in the cellular structure. And so as a child grows, more and more of those memories can come forward because that soul just sent this huge volt of electricity throughout that body, and it can activate all of these memories. But then you continue to grow. Every experience that happens to you is imprinted. Your health is imprinted in the cellular structure. And for me, when I was doing all the basic cellular clearing, I kept saying, my gosh, how much, memory can a single cell hold? This is ridiculous. I thought I'd gotten rid of this. My collective said, you cannot think of a cell as being this little bitty individual that has a mitochondria and the DNA. You have to think of it as a computer chip. And how many cells do you have in the body? How many computer chips do you have? Now, not that we really have computer chips, but that's the analogy that they were given. I mean, maybe we do, that we just can't see them, but that was the analogy that they gave me to show we hold tons of information. And we also hold that in our DNA. Those codexes that are not lit up, in scientists say, oh yeah, that's just junk DNA. No, it's not. It's your ancestry. It's your past lives. It's your galactic lives. It's your spiritual talents. They don't have a way yet to measure how a spiritual talent can reside within the DNA that's, just a tiny little speck. And so that, as far as the cellular clearing goes, when you're working with cellular clearing, you're releasing. You release the past life's traumas. You release all the soul wounding. You release the physical miasms. You release all the trauma that you have experienced in this life or any other life. You release all the ancestry history. And a lot of people honestly have come in to do ancestral healing because the ancestors before them did not have the skill set, or the energetics were not in place so that that stuff could be released. And I know a lot of times people, they come in like, oh my God, I know I'm doing ancestral healing. I don't know what I signed up for, but it's, it's like, this is not my stuff. I know it's not my stuff. And when you have things going on and you respond in a certain way and you're like, why did I do that? I don't even feel that way. Why did I say that? Understand that that's something that's already a genetic predisposition that you're working to clear. And when people trigger you, understand it has nothing to do with the other person. You might say, oh my God, that person drives me crazy. And I can't believe they did that or they said that. Well, guess what? They're serving as an opportunity for healing because they've triggered you and they're bringing something up in you that needs to be healed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have bothered you. You would have just said, huh, well, that's interesting, and been done with it. It wouldn't have evoked such a strong reaction. So that is something that's located inside the cells also that need to be healed.
So some of the past lives that you were remembering were not yours. They were the original Sheilas.
Yes.
So then you did healing for her and
Yes.
her ancestral line as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And there are on occasions that they'll give me new memories that I can walk differently than my ancestors before me, and I can clear that. I don't respond the same way that they did.
So you're doing healing work for the original Sheila's
Yeah, you have
family
to.
line.
Yeah.
But what about and what's your original name again? I forgot. It starts with an
Nawaila.
A.
Nawaila.
Nawaila. Okay. So what about that family line? Do you do healing for that as well?
Right now, that family line is only here to bring in new light codes, to bring in healing to the planet, and to continue the work that is going on. Now, I'm not saying that I, Sheila Seppi, don't have anything that needs to be worked on because I'm in human form and I've already been here for like 23 years. So obviously, there's stuff that can be worked on, but I work on it through the ancestral lineage of the body that I was given.
A lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let's go into what is your purpose? Why are you here now? And tell everybody about all the amazing things that you're doing. And trust me, she's doing all kinds of amazing things. She has unlimited energy.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's pretty high. Okay, so when I first entered into the body, they told me I was a way shower. I had no idea what a way shower was, but I figured it out what a way shower was. Then I felt this grave responsibility. Oh no, I have to help wake all these people up. I have to do this. I have to do that. Oh my God. And I studied every healing modality that I could study and offered it. I was working 7 days a week. I expanded my office. I brought other healers in because then it's like, well, maybe if I had more people, we could get more work done and da da da. Well, then I was kind of running around. Now, I will say I have had many conversations with my guides who do have quite a sense of humor. And when it's almost like they were laughing at me, like, yeah, how long is it going to take her to figure this one out? Kind of thing. But I really thought I had to do everything by myself because they said, you are a way shower, you have to do this. And so I was doing that. But the second, honestly, the second I realized I didn't have to do it all, and I knew other people were way showers, but from the way they were talking, it's like I had such a responsibility. I was supposed to be reaching these masses and I was going to be doing this and that. It's like, I don't know how one person can do that. And then when I realized, oh, I don't have to do it. I just have to gather other people together. And together we do that. And that's when I started with the Galactic Alliance. And then it grew into the Conscious Awakening Network, where now I think we've probably got I just was looking on YouTube the other day before they blocked us. I was looking on YouTube and I think we've got like 1,200 videos up. And then of course we've got videos on our website and we're continuing to expand, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But all of these videos are people who are sharing the truth about this reality, whether they're talking about it in the health field, whether they're talking about it through things that are occurring right now within the governmental systems and the galactic systems, whether they're talking about, spiritual awakenings, whether they're talking about self-improvement. All of these people are speaking with one voice and they're not saying the same thing, but there is like, wake up. We're here to support you. Wake up. So it's not just waking people up, it's being there to support them as well, because they told me very clearly that I was to help wake people up and that I was to, be here as a support net for them to get ready for the ascension. Well, when they told me that, I was like, oh, that's going to be next week. Woo, they're telling me to get ready. Here we go. Here we go. And I'm sure people throughout eons at times have been thinking the same thing. But what they were saying is you have to hurry. You have to get people ready. You have to get people prepared, because the quicker that we do this, the quicker that it's a vibrational frequency shift that will happen. Because as far as a human species, we've been ascending since the dawn of man. Every year, humanity ascends in its consciousness. And so this ascension is more about anchoring the truth of who we truly are as a spiritual being, and then allowing our consciousness to move up in the dimensional frequencies. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've got coming up with the Conscious Awakening Network, since there was a little pause there. So
Perfect
right now,
timing, because I put the links to both websites
oh,
so you can
yay. Thank
explain
you.
what they
So
are.
every year I try to give the website a new look and update, that kind of thing. But this year, and not just are we going to have a new look and a new feel, we're also going to have exclusive content that's membership based, for the exact reason of what just happened to us. We got our hands slapped again and we're put in YouTube jail because somebody on our network said something. The first time it was, Reverend Michael Carter said something in relation to Jesus that they didn't like, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to get another slap on the hand. And then we had a guest the other night that was talking about some disclosure stuff and got another slap on the hand. But with this exclusive content, people are free to talk without worrying about being censored. And so this will be a membership. It'll only be like $12.99. And the cool thing is we're going to have an affiliate program with that. So everybody listening could actually become an affiliate. And every time someone buys a membership, you get a percentage of that membership just by being an affiliate and sharing all of this wonderful work that everybody's doing. So that's one thing we have coming up. And then at the end of the month, on the 31st, if you will check out our website, again, we have a Starseed conference that's coming up. So we're really excited about that. We're still getting everything, all of our ducks in a row, but that'll be happening on the 31st, and that's free. All you have to do is sign up. You'll get a link. You can watch it. And so most of everything that we have, when we put it out, like with Sean, now that he's on the network, Everything will be live on his YouTube, on our YouTube, on his Facebook, our Facebook. It'll also go out to Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, Android TV. Then it'll be on like all the major podcasting, Spotify, Google, all of those. And then it's also on the website, etc. And so we have, like right now, we're going out on about 14 different platforms. And so the messages that are coming through these podcasts are reaching thousands of ears every time somebody comes to speak. I'm going to say that's part of my way showing mission. So I'm going to check that one off. I feel pretty good, because everybody is really a way shower. We're all here to help support each other. We're all here to help, people to wake up.
Yeah, and so yes, we're going to be broadcasting our events every month on there, but also we do a lot of special events only on Conscious Awakening Network. So you can go there now and you can see, if you go to Near-Death Experiences and Spiritual Awakening with Sean Lether, you can go and you can see some special events that we did just on Conscious Awakening Network. So it's very exciting.
Yes, it is. And so, I'm just so thrilled that there's so many people that have a similar vision, because, when this first came to me and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to do this network and you're going to do this. And it's kind of like, I want to play with other people. Even when I started meeting with the first, I guess you would say, app developing people that were talking to me about this, they're like, okay, so we can get Conscious Awakening Network here, 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 and here. And I'm like, well, okay, but I said, what if we have other people that come on too? Well, you can interview anybody you want. And I'm like, no, but what if I said, like, how about if 5 of my friends or 12 of my friends put their shows on? And they're like, oh no, lady, you're crazy, and finally I wore them down. So we had to start out. But literally within, let's say, October, November, December, January, within 4 months, we already blew up the system because we had so much content on there. And that's when I started really, I know there's a lot of wonderful AI out there. And don't get me wrong, I like AI. Some of it is fantastic. Some of it, not so much. But I still believe in the coding. I like to give people jobs. And so everything that we do, we build our own apps. And so I'm really excited about that, because when we get this membership up and going, then I know that membership program is going to work the way I want it to work. I know these platforms are going to work, and that's why they're very, very stable. And so you don't ever have to worry about it going down unless electricity turns off, because we also have, we're on some of the largest, server capacities that are out there.
Yeah, and a lot of it's free. There's only, in fact, everything's free right now.
Everything is free, and the majority of everything is going to continue to be free. But there's some content
Some
like
special
that we've gotten slapped our hands with that is not going to be free, that people can purchase. And we have some phenomenal stuff coming up.
That's wonderful. Okay, so also, you're an amazing healer. I haven't experienced your services, but I know lots of people that have. Do you want to share a little bit about what you do to help other people in that?
Yeah, well, I do several different things. Because we're located in the Vail Valley, I don't always advertise what people would call the woo-woo stuff right up front, but I guarantee once I got them on the table, it's all over but the crying, but seriously, my son and I have a business where we do a particular modality where we move muscle, bone, tissue, fiber, put all of that back into original location, break compensation patterns. I work with energetics to, kind of realign the body. I do a lot of frequency work. I have a lot of, play toys, a lot of equipment where we can run scans on the body and tell you what the vitals are, what your emotional states are, that kind of thing. The live and dried blood cell analysis. But then on my website, I do more of all the energetic healing. And so I really do, really what I call holographic alchemy, because that holographic field that we were talking about, I'll go in and I will make little tweaks to that. Because a lot of times these conduits of energy are stagnant, or they're not existent, or they have rips and tears and holes. And so what I do with my team is we will repair these. We release the past life traumas, we release the soul wounds, the ancestral issues, things. And I always tell people, don't tell me too much, because when I tell you something, I don't want you to say, oh, yeah, I already told her that. So I just have people to just give me the bare necessities. And so sometimes they go in and we'll work on somebody's knees. Well, then we find out that in the knees, that crystalline structures that really are, family miasms that have been passed down generational, or hips, those kinds of things. A lot of times that can be released in a session. A lot of times it'll take a couple sessions, because it's not sometimes instantaneously, sometimes it is. But in working with this holographic field, then I can go in and I can really start to repair what's happening real time right now. And then the other thing, like I'll do galactic readings for people. I do, just all kinds of different healing modalities. And you can
Wonderful.
read all about that at SheilaSeppi.com.
Yeah. And then I put a link into the list of the current series that everyone can see on Conscious Awakening Network. Somebody would like to know, what are the techniques that you use for cellular clearing?
Energy. I just, like but if you're wanting to do that for yourself, it's a lot of really deep work. And so you have to begin to unravel everything, because you have to go back to the point of origin. Just clearing something to make yourself feel better temporarily, I mean, that's good because it gives you relief in the moment, but you really have to backtrack to the point of origin, either in this lifetime or another lifetime. And I have found that that is the only way to really successfully be able to remove these things from the holographic field, because I can honestly tell you, I've had, some people that have, gut issues. No matter what they do, it's gut issues. We try, we try traditional energy work. I mean, it's not really traditional, but to me, that's the more traditional kinds of stuff. And if that's not working, then it's like, okay, then we have to actually backtrack. It really wasn't the sushi that you had last Tuesday that caused those issues. Let's go back and see what it was. I just did this with one guy and found out that there was a ship explosion, and there was a piece of something that kind of landed into him and sort of ripped him apart. Obviously, he died, but the body, the soul was so, there was this trauma that went right into it. So it impacted it and it imprinted on that soul. And so they had carried it into this lifetime, and this is the time that he is releasing that. And so what happened is he had a blockage that came up that had to be removed, that was actually where that shrapnel had been. And so it's really interesting how our bodies remember things that our mind has no idea about, but everything is located within the subconscious. Also do, the QHHT regression therapies as well, but that's something that has to be hands-on. I don't do that unless it's somebody's right in front of me.
In person. Somebody wants to know, so the original soul that checks out,
Yep.
can they then later become a walk-in themselves?
I mean, I guess they can, because they're on the other side. So they can either be reincarnated in here, or they can go to another planet, or they may be resting, or who knows? Because remember, when we go to the other side, sometimes there is a period of rest. Being in human form and having the experiences that we have, especially for, like star seeds, it can be very devastating. Not only do you have this nervous system, which is unlike any other nervous system, you've got this nervous system that is torn all to pieces. You have all these physical aches, all these pains. You know, a lot of people go, I mean, they suffer every minute of every day, whether it's pain or mental torment. That makes an impression on the soul, and that will impact and leave an imprint. And so that has to be cleared. Sometimes it's, you know, they carry it through to another lifetime to be cleared, but sometimes they go, there's like these, it's like light baths is basically what it is. And the soul just kind of goes in and you get these light, you know, and wave frequency infusions to help heal and to repair.
You gone to have your DNA checked and compared it to the old DNA of Sheila to see?
You know, the old, you know, I mean, I'm sure there is DNA on record, but I'm not going to go volunteer my DNA because DNA is a very high commodity. I just heard that Ancestry.com was just purchased by BlackRock, enough said.
Oh, really? But
Yeah.
I thought they were owned by the Mormons.
Yeah, well, so did I. But somebody, it was tonight's Tuesday. Yeah. So last night on the show, someone was talking about DNA and they put in the comments that they had read that BlackRock had just bought Ancestry.com. And so you have to realize you've got the mega corporations that have their fingers in everything. So they can name themselves whatever they want.
Yeah, that's very true. So, you know, you had talked about earlier, you know, and like Eckhart Tolle talks about a new earth and whatever. What do you see with all this craziness?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see that is going on? And what advice can you give people to help them stay more centered and not freak out so much about the story, especially now with the election? Everybody's really on edge.
Right, right. Well, first off, you do have to remember that this is, I mean, this is all a holographic illusion that we're having. So don't put too much energy into anything because we are co-creator beings. And so I always tell people that which you fear, and this is one of the first teachings that my teacher gave me, that which you fear, you call to yourself, because you're putting so much energy in it, and we are co-creators. We're actually helping to co-create that very thing that we don't want to happen because we have so much fear around it. Okay. And so that's one thing. But when it comes to the new earth, you know, Gaia herself is a sentient being, and Gaia herself is undergoing this massive shift and change. Now, I don't know if you guys paid attention to this or not, but when there was the lockdown during the pandemic, did you see how quickly that Gaia repaired herself? That you were able to actually see the him. I mean, we're talking just a matter of days and weeks that, bam, instantaneous healing started occurring. How did that happen? How did that happen? It's because Gaia herself shifted. I think all of this is this grand orchestration to get us to where we actually need to be. And pandemic is like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's just a step. That's one of the stepping stones. Okay, the next thing is this. The next thing is this. When it comes to elections or fear or all the stuff that's happening on the planet right now, I just tell people, what happens when you walk into a dark room and you flip on the light? You see everything that's there. And the light quota on this planet is raising. And when that light quota begins to raise and it starts to shine its light, you start to see everything. Corrupt politics didn't just happen in the last 8 years. It's always been. But now, people's vibrational frequency will not allow them to drop into that. War did not just happen start with Russia. It didn't happen that way. It's always been. But now people are like, this is not acceptable. How can this be happening? And that's because your vibrational frequency is changing, and no longer are the things that once were acceptable acceptable. You see things with new eyes. You hear differently. You respond differently. So what's happening out there? It's always been. It's just now. It's like all of a sudden we woke up. When we opened our doors and we walked out on the planet after that pandemic, it seemed like everything had shifted. We were walking into a brand new reality because Gaia herself had shifted. Gaia is no longer, and if you'll think what has happened in the last 3 to 4 years, I mean, the ideas that people carry now are not the same ones that they had when they went into the pandemic. And the beautiful thing about the pandemic, people got to reconnect with their families. They got to drop into who they are as a spiritual being. They had time to shift their diets. They had time to meditate. They had time for all of this. And unlike what I think people thought was going to happen, the vibrational frequency of the planet raised, Gaia shifted, and we have already started moving into that new Earth because we live in a third density. We live on a third density planet, okay, that contains dimensions 1, 2, and 3. So we're in a third density planet. But guess what? How many people have fifth dimensional consciousness? How many people have seventh dimensional consciousness? The trick is to hold it. But when we all lock in to that 5D consciousness at the same time and are holding it, that's when the new Earth transition will occur.
Beautifully said. And we really saw it here in Hawaii. The coral reefs started coming back, and it was quite amazing.
Yeah, and they said that would take how many years?
Right.
And it like happened overnight. It's like, what's going on? Yeah, Gaia's changed. She shifted.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Sheila. This has been a huge blessing to have you here to share all that you're doing with the world. And I'm so excited, honored to know you. And everybody here has just been touched. All kinds of really beautiful messages for you. Do you have any final message that you would like to give before we close?
Yeah, I do. I always want people to remember that you are so much more than you have been taught. You are more powerful than you know. You are a soul having a human experience. You're not a human having a human experience. You're a soul in this avatar form. You are part of that source energy. And as such, you are more powerful than you could ever begin to imagine. So really step into that. I always tell people, drop back into that person that you already are, but you've told that you're not, that you're told you have to strive to be, okay? Because you're already there. Just embrace that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
This has been a great honor, and I hope you'll come back and share more of your wisdom with us. And you guys can, when you go to the Conscious Awakening Network, you can go to the events page and you can see Sheila has 2 shows that you do every week on
Mondays and
Thursday.
Thursdays. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And those are open. Those are live. You typically can, you can go to the website and you can watch them on the TV. Just hit live TV and it'll come up. If you have Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, or I tell you what, you can even download it. We have a free app on Apple and the Android, the Google stores. So just go and download the free app and you can watch everything that we have. Just carry it with you. And then if you have Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, or Android TV, just go ahead and type in Conscious Awakening Network and that app will pop up and you can download it. We've not yet gotten up there with Netflix, but we're working on it.
Something tells me it'll be up there with Netflix in a year or so. The way that you work.
Fingers crossed. That's the way they work.
Right. Thank you so much,
Aw,
Sheila.
thank you.
I really enjoyed it and everybody just loved this. And thank you, David, for helping keep stuff going in the chat. And I'm really grateful to all of you that attended. Hopefully we will see you at the IANDS conference at the end of the month, if not the sharing group on the 20th. And we will see you all next month. Aloha.
Mhm.